Hello and welcome to a new Google Sheets tutorial in Practical Sheets. Today I'm very excited because we're going to start a new project. It's called a CRM, or a Customer Relationship Management. Actually, it's a very basic one that we're going to start. Let's see how far along can we take it. But for now, it's a system that's going to allow us to create new contacts, validate the contact. Let's say that, for example, we don't duplicate a contact based on our emails, and we're going to save it in a separate data that in the future we could have this in a different file if we want. But the idea is that we don't have to touch this. We all are going to do it from here. And this is a very simple first step. We have the email, the first name, the last name, the phone number, but we could include a lot of other things in the future. And the nice thing is that we have here a message that when we create a new email, let's say Pepe, and this is Pepe, and we save it here, it says that you saved successfully. And if you try to save it again and you put it here, it says that you already have created this contact and it will not create it again. And finally, if you try to create a new contact and you put it here, let's say whatever, and then but you leave one of the fields without filling it out, and you put it here, then it says you did not fill out all of the fields. So this is what we're going to do today. I hope you like it, but before you do, you can support this channel by subscribing to the YouTube channel or going to practicalsheets.com, where soon you'll find the templates and courses on all of the topics we discuss here. So let's begin. I've done in another video almost a year ago, contact management or contact creation system, but it was, let's say, the first step. A very simple system where we created contacts and then we can see their details in a dashboard like table. So we're going to improve that, and this looks nice, but it's very unpractical when you have 100, 200, 300 contacts, because you have to go down and create a new one. So it's not that user friendly. So there are many ways of taking this up to the next level. So I'm going to do one, and is called a CRUD system, all directly in Sheets. This means a CRUD system means creation, reading, updating, and deleting system. So in one form, we can take all this database and quickly modify it or read it or delete it. I don't have to come to the database, and this resolves many security problems, because maybe I can have this in another file. I don't need no one to come here and edit this manually. We can do it everything by code. So this is going to be a Google Apps Script heavy project, because we need Google Apps Script so that it reads our form and sends it to our database. So we're going to start step by step. I'm going to gauge the interest to see how much are you interested in a CRM type style in Google Sheets. And you can tell me if you don't like it, if you like it, what it's missing. So let's start with the basis. Always like to start with a simple database, very similar to this one. Actually, we can start with email, first name, and maybe phone number. That's it, or these four things. So email, first name, last name, and phone number. That's it. And then we can add more things. Normally in a database, we try to have a key or an ID or a reference or something that will not repeat itself. It may be a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it never repeats. Or sometimes in modern databases, like for example in AppSheet, they do a random number, or a random alphanumeric string, A1, C4, D in uppercase, and all that. Depending on our database, sometimes we can find the IDs or the keys in the same database. Such is the case of the contacts, because maybe the first name can repeat itself, the last name can repeat itself, even the phone number. And today, maybe some people, you won't have the phone number, but in 2022, normally in most databases, our key will be the email, because this is the main means of communication today, is the email, and the email never repeats itself. So it's checking all the boxes, and we don't need to add a new ID. So the email could be our ID. This means that we don't need to add a new field that's called ID, because the email will be our ID. This is good for us, because the less fields we need to manage, the better. Okay, So we're going to call this database or table or data, however you want. Now, I'm going to take all of these fields, I'm going to paste them, I'm going to add a new sheet and call this form or input, or you can call it in many ways. Actually, I'm going to paste this transposed. So right click, paste special and transposed. So I have it like this. Okay, now we have over 4 fields and let's write something down. Let's write my email. Let's write my name. And I'm going to separate names, first name and last name. And let's give it a phone number. 226-111-111. Okay? So this is it. I'm going to save this form in our data. So let's go to extensions, AppScript. Here we'll start our code. Let's give it some zoom. Let's call this save record. And there are many ways of doing this. The easiest way is just going one by one, saving it in a variable and then putting it in our data. Okay? This is the easiest way and the most flexible way. So I'm going to create 4 variables and access each of these for data. When I have 20, 30, it may take a bit longer because it has to go one by one. So there are other methods we can use when we have a lot of data. Maybe our records are 50 lines. So I can show you in future videos how can we do when we have a lot of data in our forms. But in majority of forms, we're not going to have more than 5, maybe even 10 or 20 rows. And I think with this method, it's enough for that. It will never time out. So first, we're going to connect with our book, our file, or as it's commonly known, our worksheet. So we're going to create a variable called worksheet. Then we're going to say spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet, which is our current spreadsheet. And this is our file, our worksheet. Okay. Then we're going to connect with a specific sheet. In this case, this sheet called form. So given that we have at least 2 spreadsheets, we're going to call this form SS. And this will be WS. It says connect, go to our book, to the variable I define as my file or my book or my worksheet. And then we're going to call a method called get sheet by name. So it says exactly what the method says. It gets the sheet by its name. And the name is form. So form. Okay. Now I have the form. Now I can go to a specific cell in that sheet. So I can go to B1, that is my email. So let's create an email variable that will say, okay, sheet form. I want to access your B1 or B2. Your B1 cell. How do we do it? With the method getRange. GetRange, I'm just going to put the B1 and let's say get value. And we can do the same for these other 3, first name, last name, and phone number. So let's copy this, let's paste it 3 times, and this will be B2, B3, and B4. Here it will be first name, then last name. The more descriptive your variables, the better, okay? Don't put variable 1, variable 2, because then you won't know what we're talking about. And this will be phone number, phone. That's enough, okay? Finally, we're going to say all of this in an array. We're going to call this data to paste. And we can order it in any way we want. In our case, here, the order is the same. First email, then first name, then last name, then phone number. As in here, first email, then first name, then last name, then phone number. So we're just going to put it in the same order. Email, first name, last name, phone number. So here, if you know a lot about programming, you can say, okay, maybe we can do this in a better way, because all of these are one after the other, and all of these are one after the other. So we can have some array methods to get all the array and then paste transposed here. Yes, but the beautiful thing about this is that then we can change the order really easily. Maybe I want the phone in my database to be before the first name, or maybe I want my email to be after the phone. So I will just change the order of the array and that's it. Okay, so finally we're going to paste it to our data sheet. There are a couple of ways of doing it. We're going to start with the easiest way, and maybe in a subsequent video I can show you another way. So the first thing we're going to do is define our data sheet. We already defined our form spreadsheet. Now we're going to define our data spreadsheet. This will be WS, the same, get sheet by name. You can see that you start typing, and Sheets helps you a lot, so you don't have to type all the methods, all the functions. So now this is called not form, but data. And here we're going to use a very simple function called append row. Data ss dot append row, and we're going to append this data to paste. It's very important for you, if you're just starting in this, that you notice these square brackets. These square brackets means that this is an array, okay? And it's good to know when you call a method, for example, this append row, you start the parentheses and that you see the help here. And the help here says that append row needs an array, a simple array, similar to the one we have here. So if we put data to paste, it will work perfectly because we are sending an array. However, if we use another method like set values, this doesn't require an array, but an array of arrays. So be very careful. When you start leveling up and using other methods, you need to pay a lot of attention to the help, because the help of each method will tell you what kind of information is expecting from you and what does the method do. Okay? And that's it. It should work. Let's save. The first time it may take a bit longer, and once we run it, it may ask for some permission. So I forgot to put a name to the project. It's good to put a name. So let's call this CRM. I think it's a bit ambitious to call it CRM because I don't know if we're going to do all the functions of a CRM, but let's see how far do we go. Let's run it. We already have some data here, so we can run it. We need some permissions because it's connecting to our Google Sheets. Let's allow, and it worked well. Apparently it worked well. It didn't have any errors. This doesn't mean it's going to work well. We need to go here and see if it worked, and apparently it worked perfectly. Okay, so let's try it with another one. Here we can start seeing some of the problems we may have in the future, or not the problems, the things we need to fix. For example, here I don't have a number, so we should have some data validation that this is an email, that this is a phone number, but we can deal with this later. So let's go here, let's run again, double check that it puts it below this one. I forgot to tell you what does append row do, and is append row goes to the sheet I told him, and it looks for the last row, and it will insert the row at the end after the last row of data. So we can always make sure that the next row will be the last one. As I told you before, we could also do, for example, that the row is always inserted at the beginning, but I think append row works really well for now. So now we have this first. Maybe I need to put a button so that we can do it from here and we don't have to go to the editor every time. So there are two ways of creating a button. One is with a drawing and the second is with an image. I prefer the image. I don't like that much the drawing app from Google Sheets. So I'm going to say here save, and let's look for a nice image. This could be this one, it could be this diskette file, it could be this one also. Let's use anyone. So let's scale it a bit. And now we have our save. And finally, we're going to put the name of this function inside our button. With these three buttons, we'll say assign script, and we'll paste it here without parentheses. We say okay, and let's do just under test. Save, and it's working very nice. One thing we can do is to do some data validation. The validation, we could do it in two ways. Once we run the script, or directly here in our sheet. Any of both would work well. Actually, we need to do a mix of both. So, for example, this should be an email. So very simple way to do it is let's go to data, data validation. We say here text, and then we put here is valid email. We can reject the input, and maybe we can put a message if you prefer. Let's save. And if I write anything here, it says that it has to be an email. You see here I have a message that I don't like, so I could go back here, data validation, and tell him a specific message. Enter a valid email, it looks fine. Okay, again, let's write something, and it says enter a valid email, and you can customize the message if you want. The name and last name, I don't think there's a lot of things we could do, but the phone number, we could also validate that at least it is a number. Then we can do further more complex validations that is 10 digits long, but for now that is a number. For me it works well. So let's say data validation. Let's say it is a number between, no, it doesn't matter, it's just that it's a number greater than 0 or maybe less than 100,000. It depends on the number, if it's a fixed number or a mobile or whatever. In the validation I could say please enter a valid phone number. For now, if I put any text, it won't be a number, but if I put any number that it's more than 6 digits long, it would work great. Okay, and now I could save it again, and it works. It's just a very basic validation. So this is it. Actually, it's not that nice. I'm going to select this column here, then go Ctrl+Shift+right and delete it. Right click and delete columns. And the same here, I'm going to click on row number 9, Ctrl+Shift+down, right click and delete rows. And now I have a bit nicer form, and I could put it even nicer. I could say view and show, I could not show the grid lines, and I can create my own grid lines here. Maybe I'm just going to put some very thin line, just horizontal, and maybe a bit of a blue. That's it. Okay, so before we go, we're going to do a couple of more data validations so that we have our input perfectly. The first data validation is that I don't want to be able to save the record if I have anything empty. Okay, so let's go here. We have our date to paste here. So what I could say, there are two methods. One is called every, and the other one is called sum. So what I need is to make sure that none of these are blank. Yeah, so I could use the every method and say that every row or every element should have something. So element, that's it. So that it is not blank. This will return true. So if data to paste every is true, then we are going to append the row. If not, we're not going to do anything. In the future, we could put a message, or maybe we can write down here, we could have a small message center here. Let's add a couple of more rows. So I could have my message here, and I could put here error. Every element is mandatory, or you should fill out all elements in the form, for example. Okay, so else I could say form SS get range. Here it could be here in the A6, and we could set the value to the following message. You did not fill out all of the fields, something like that. Let's see, let's save. Let's go here, let's put another one. Let's try to save. You did not fill out all of the fields, and maybe we can put this in a color or something like that. And you can see that it did not fill it out. If I fill it out and I put it again, then it does put it here, but maybe I should clear this up from the beginning, okay? I could clear this A6. So at the beginning, I could say, before I do anything, I could say clear content. Okay, let's try it one more time. Something, I have a mistake. Let's save again. And here I'm going to put another one. Just leave out the phone number. And again, you did not fill out the fields, and tutu, I didn't say tutu. And then if I put a number that is more than 6 digits long, remember, and I save it again. Then it clears this out. Maybe I can put a message here, successfully saved or something like that. So I'm going to put this inside brackets, and here I could do this and set value successfully saved. Let's save again. Maybe I can do some formatting here. And once again, save successfully. And maybe in the future I can put some colors here so that it looks nicer. The final thing I'm going to do before going is to check that I have not already created this email. Yeah. And it won't let me create if I've already created before. Okay. So we can do this relatively easy. Before doing anything, let's just check that the email doesn't exist. So how do we do it? First, we're going to go here and take all of the emails. How do we do this? We go to data SS, get range. Let's start in the row 2, column 1. So row 2, column 1, and let's go until the last row it finds. So how do we do this? With data SS and the method get last row. But given that we are not starting in the first row but on the second, then I should remove 1 from this. Let's get the values. And now I have my array of emails. However, this array of emails, let's save it here in emails. It's an array of arrays. Remember what I told you about the difference between an array that has 1 bracket and an array of arrays that has 2 brackets? Okay, so this will return 2 brackets. I need to transform it into something like this, so the method I'm going to use called indexOf will work well. So I'm going to say emails.map. This is the method to transform from an array of arrays to an array. I'm just going to remove one of the brackets, that's it. Emails map. So each row, what I'm going to do is take the inside element, the 0 element of that row. And I could say this all again in my emails array. Okay? I have an error here actually. You have to be very careful with the lower and uppercase. And the good thing is that Sheets warns you when you start seeing the methods that it brings you, then you can start detecting that something's not right. Okay. Now I have my emails, that it's the simple collection of emails, and I'm going to say indexOf, and let's look for email. So we can say that if this is -1, is that it didn't find it, okay? If it didn't find it, then we can do all of this. If it did find it, then we can say the record is already saved. Maybe we can have in the future a button to update it, or you can ask if you want to update it or something like that. So for now, let's say else. And if else, we're just going to set a message that says, you already have created this contact. For now, we just want to avoid duplicates. That's it for now. But maybe in the future, we want to replace or be able to edit. Remember that CRUD system stands for create, read, update, and delete. This update feature, we've not doubled with it right now. We'll do it in a separate video. Let's save for now, and let's check. Let's try to save this pop-up again. And it says you already have created this contact, and it's not going to create it again. Okay? Just one last thing. After I did this recording, the validation pop-up menu changed a bit. So if you got a little bit confused, so for example, remember we did a validation here in email. So let's go to data validation. And you can see that now we don't have the pop-up, but we have a panel to the right. Okay, so the nice thing is that we can explore easily the rules we have. Remember, we have an email validation and we have a number validation. So if I want to change it, I could go here and change the validation. Here I have the criteria. The difference between the other one is that I had 2 different checkboxes. One if it was text, one if it was number, one if it was date. Now it's much more simpler. I have the text here, the dates here, the numbers here, or if I want to do advanced validations or drop downs or anything, we could do it there. Okay, so just a parenthesis, because maybe you you will say, what's this guy talking about if I get a different thing, okay? And if I click here, then I could remove any of the rules, or I could add new rules, okay? So this is a new thing that changed very recently in the end of 2022. So I think we have a very nice first step, is that we can create contacts. It does not let us have empty fields. Maybe in the future you have some mandatory and some non-mandatory. We can work with that in the future. And the last thing is that we also did some validations here for the email, for the number, and finally we are preventing to create duplicate contacts. Okay, so I hope it's a first nice step and that you like it. And if you like it, then we can do the second and third and fourth, and let's see how long it'll take us. Thank you so much. See you next time.